not what I needed to do. So now we're gonna have to redo it. Green. Let's check. Russia. Let's check. Denmark. And then, 1 second. So we're live. Gonna get this thing up here. And then I needed to get the link in. That's what I was missing. Oh shit. What the fuck? There we go. That's better. Go to profile. Go here. And pin profile. Go that one. And do, yeah. All right, now we're live. That's good. Okay. So, yeah, let's get into it. Some stuff going on here in the overseas area. That's a Kawasaki. Yeah, that's a civilian's plane right there. It's just an Airbus just outside Ukraine there. Some Canadian Airbus. Is that a bomb raider? No, it's a Libyan Arab jump, whatever. Can't read that. Anyways, we'll get to some news here. Biden admitted that the Ukrainian armed forces may lose other cities after Avdiivka until the U.S. Congress approves additional aid funding for Ukraine. No, I'm not. This is a quote from Biden, by the way. No, I'm not sure. Nobody can be sure. Look, the Ukrainians. Holy shit, you can't even read what he says. Look, the Ukrainians are fighting bravely and heroically. There's is so much at stake. The idea we are running out of ammunition, that we're going to turn our backs, I find absurd, unethical. So I will fight to get them the ammunition they need, said the President of the United States. There you go. Yeah. We'll get to that in a second. We'll dissect that, but we're going to move on to some other thing here. Of course, we have the Denmark deciding to transfer all of its artillery to Ukraine. Prime Minister of the country, Mette Frederiksen, said. Ukraine is asking for the munition and artillery shells. We, Denmark, have decided to transfer all of our artillery to Ukraine. So sorry, friends. There is military equipment in Europe. It is not only a matter of production. We have weapons, ammunition, air defense systems, which we do not use yet. They must be handed over to Ukraine, the official stressed. So I want to point something out here, that although I am in very much agreement with the terms, I also would urge Denmark, or in any case, to continue to send everything that we do own. I mean, send the tanks, send the missiles, send everything, really. I mean, how much ground base do we have? Send armored combat vehicles. There is no reason for Denmark to even have armored combat vehicles in the first place. It doesn't make sense for Denmark to have stuff like that. We should have enough still, that if we were to be able to mobilize our army, we need to have enough to be able to, of course, mobilize our armies to the front lines. But one other things I will say is, in terms of power and having a standing army, doesn't make any sense anymore. It makes sense for Poland, Finland, and the Baltic sisters, but it doesn't make any sense for Denmark to continuously running around with the ground force. What we need to do is get rid of it, and we need to institute what is a an air force and a sea force. If we got rid of all of our all of our ground forces, instead replace that with much more powerful an air force with, of course, additional additions such as drone forces and stuff like that, which is the new warfare apparently. And then, having a massive sea power or better sea power would make Denmark much more respected military, which I think we need to consider very heavily. 47 Russians were killed and wounded in the Battle of Andvika. Dmytro Lukhyvyi, spokesman for the Travi OSUV, during the capture of Andvika, 70,000 Russian civilians died, he said. Let's move on from that all there. I didn't get so much news today because apparently Twitter doesn't make news anymore. It just expresses its private opinions. So here you have it. This is, ever since Elon Musk came along, there's been no official, there's not news anymore. It's just a bunch of people with a bunch of opinions nobody gives a shit about. Everyone has an opinion. You don't need to give a shit about theirs, and I don't give a shit about most.
Дорогі українці, українки, завершуємо тиждень, дуже складний тиждень, і важливо зараз відзначити кілька речей. Перше, вдячність усім нашим воїнам, усім, хто працює на оборону, усім, хто допомагає. Цього тижня усі небайдужі серця, і не лише в Україні, переживали про наших героїв, про нашу Авдіївку, про кожного її оборонця та про долю усіх наших людей, про долю всієї держави. Битва продовжується. Головне, у цій битві ми робимо все можливе і неможливе, щоб здолати російське зло і захистити якнайбільше українських життів. Українці не вперше б'ються героїчно, але вперше в своїй історії Україна досягла такої світової солідарності і підтримки. І хоч бувають різні політичні настрої у світі, різні спалахи проблем, які розосереджують увагу, ми все одно всі разом робимо максимум, щоб світ був з нами, з Україною. А отже, щоб наші воїни могли зупиняти російських нелюдей і повертати Україні українське. Я дякую всім, хто б'ється, хто допомагає, хто зберігає стійкість та рішучість. Друге, конкретна підтримка світу. Цей тиждень дав нашій державі ще 2 угоди про довготривалу співпрацю і підтримку з країнами-лідерами. Німеччина, Франція. Дуже амбітні наші безпекові домовленості. Ще раз дякую пану канцлеру Шольцу, пану президенту Макрону, усім в наших командах, хто готував угоди і зафіксував саме те, що потребуємо. Оборонна підтримка, спільні політичні кроки, подальша систематизація відносин між інституціями наших держав заради більшої безпеки та спільної сили. Працюємо із іншими нашими партнерами над новими угодами. Це буде дуже ефективна і розгалужена архітектура безпекових гарантій. Речі, які слугуватимуть стримуванню російської агресії в майбутньому і допомагатимуть зараз. Зараз захищати незалежність. І третє. Мюнхенська безпекова конференція – дуже результативна участь цього року. Наш український погляд на світовий порядок денний був підтриманий партнерами. Я провів перемовини з лідерами Данії, Нідерландів, Чехії. Маємо рішення про додаткову підтримку. Також з лідером Азербайджану. Як завжди, хороша, продуктивна розмова, яка може зміцнити обидва наші народи і увесь регіон. Зустрівся з прем'єр-міністром Бангладеш, з президентом Гватемали, окремо американські партнери. Розмова з президентом Байденом, дуже важливі акценти, і, зокрема, про Авдіївку, і необхідність продовження принципової і достатньої підтримки України. Перемовини з віце-президенткою США, дуже предметні зустрічі з конгресменами, представниками обох партій, обох палат американського конгресу. І кожна така розмова максимально чітко підтверджувала ключовий сенс. Саме Україна може зупинити Путіна і створити такі умови, щоб він був покараний за все зло, яке наробив. Але щоб Україна могла досягти цього успіху, захистити свою землю, своїх людей і нашу спільну правду усіх у вільному світі, Україна не має залишитись наодинці. Підтримка важлива, солідарність важлива. Лише разом, у єдності, можна перемогти у цій війні. Мусимо бути і надалі стійкими, мусимо бути і надалі рішучими, мусимо досягти наших українських цілей у цій війні. Слава Україні!
Slava Ukraine. There you go. Thanks so much, Zelensky. Have a wonderful night, Zelensky.
Дорогі українці,
Or day, or I'm sure your times are tough. I'll show you the current map of Ukraine here. Now, a lot of people are freaking out because, well, Antevika has been taken. I understand. Here you have it. That's Antevika right there, and you can see it's been taken. So there has been, of course, the changes here over past, like it was about 2 days' time. They managed to completely solidify, and then today I was told that they have solidified their gains in this area here. Now there's been further gains today, as far as I understand. There you go. Over here, there's been some gains. Something is up here as well. Oh no, but I mean, this is a problem here that you have, right? Look at this now, for example, today as well. Look at that. I mean, this is another town. We thought this is Ropatani here, and if they decide to start taking this, I mean, this is a classic start of a blitzkrieg event here. But I will say this, as much as I've said it before, it wouldn't make very much sense for Ukraine to think about pulling back this here area just a little while until they get their their new equipment. Denmark was just told that they were going to start sending stuff, but I am aware that Denmark has very, very little in terms of artillery. It has artillery systems and stuff like that, but production is not really something it has a lot of. I mean, it's pretty much pathetically. They've had it since 1945. They've had the time to get ready, but they haven't. The only people who's been getting ready since 1945 is the goddamn Americans. They're the only people who've actually been ready. And even they haven't even been ready for this. So you can arguably say the Russians are the only one who's been getting ready, which is also a ridiculous thing to say, but it's true. You can't get rid of the truth, can you? So, arguably we've been too lazy. That's what we have been. I also understand that there might still be Ukrainian soldiers across this frontier or in these areas here. There might still be Ukrainian soldiers that continue to advance upon these islands here, trying to take what is Zaporizhia. Was that Zaporizhia over here? What was that one called? That's one's called Donetsk, right? No, it's called Kherson. There you go, Kherson. Right. So trying to take Kherson back. I understand that they're still over here, but they're not present or haven't done anything currently. The only advantage that we saw here today is a near reachable push here by the Russians in the area here in Zaporizhia, trying to take that back, this ball. You got to remember, they've literally just taken back Antevika, which is literally a remake of what we're seeing over here. This is Antevika a few days ago with the Russians. The Ukrainians decided to pull back, which is something I advocated for because, well, you have to think to yourself, this is not a viable option to be able to hold this. I mean, the problem is what the Ukraine were planning to do, and what would have been smart is trying to, of course, push up here and trying to take around or create some kind of blitzkrieg here, but they didn't have the numbers, or they didn't have the materials and the equipment alone. Now, whose fault is that? I'd say that's the Western fault, partly their fault for not getting ready as well, but that's far in between. It's mostly, 99% Western fault. I have said it for a long time, the idea of this invasion, the idea of invading these areas here is not something I would advocate for. It doesn't seem... They were on a high roll. The United States, the Europeans, they said, oh, well, they haven't shown us anything lately. Are we going to stop giving them weapons? I think that was sort of what happened, the reality check. that each option says. What a time to live in. Yeah, I mean, listen, Russia wins equals a bad time. That's true. To say that this is a bad time for anything, oh, Witchy, welcome in, and Johnny, you're alive. Johnny, he's alive. To say that this is a bad outcome is a false statement. I think what was attempted here was a bad thing in the first place. It made sense. Kind of made sense strategically. It didn't really make that lot of sense strategically. This one over here hasn't made a lot of sense in a long while. It's kind of like trying to hold, and I do imagine this hold here falling in a matter of time here, but this area I do imagine falling soon. I remember you were here, right? I said, like, I remember going, Andavika will not last. I think it's in the start of the stream I said Andavika might not last the night, and then I also said later in the stream that Andavika will not last a week. It didn't last. Like after I went off, it was an hour. It was an hour after they took. Ukraine announced their withdrawal from Andavika. An hour after I said it. Like, you're looking at the factors. I don't think you had to be a genius to figure that one out, but some people are still saying it's false and all that. Twitter is doing its thing where it's treating a withdrawal from Andavika as if Ukraine is losing. I will point out Ukraine is not at this current moment actively losing this war. That's ridiculous. I mean, there's so much left of Ukraine. If the Russians were to say, let's say the Russians took this whole area in one swoop like that, then I'd say, okay, yeah, we're looking at a possible scenario here where it's looking really bad for the Ukrainians. It's already looking bad for the Ukrainians, but this taking the city of Andavika is not necessarily a large victory for the Russians. It is a victory, but at what cost? I mean, 47,000 Russian soldiers were deemed ineligible to fight anymore, which means they're not able to fight anymore. They've either lost a limb, they have suffered damage that renders them unable to fight, which is brain trauma or anything really like that. They have. There's also the other things of simply being dead. That tends to cause you to not be able to fight anymore if you're dead. So they were saying that a confirmation of 17,000 Russian soldiers have died taking Andavika. That's the assault force. I believe the number may even be higher than that. We're looking maybe in the 20,000 because of the estimates that came out. But the 20,000 soldiers to take one city, it's of course we don't have the Ukrainian estimates, and I do hate that there hasn't been any. Like, it's not that I don't understand why they're not releasing Ukrainian death toll. I understand why they wouldn't release that in terms of morale and all that kind of stuff, but I would like to understand what level of losses they've received, because the Ukrainians are complaining about lack of manpower. If you start complaining about lack of manpower, considering the factor that the latest estimates put the Ukrainian losses at like 30,000, if you're starting complaining, because they said they had 700,000 at the front lines, right? And some people came out and said they had 700,000, or that was what their plan to mobilize. They could even get 1 million if they wanted to, but I think they had somewhere between 700,000 or less than that. But it was in that number, in that ballpark, and said they've lost 40,000. And then they started saying we have shortages in manpower. So either those estimates are not directly true, or they are complaining about the factor of having to spread 700,000 soldiers across a line that's equivalent to more than what Denmark masses. So it's quite a large line. I mean, hypothetically taking from that point and all the way up to the top point up here, we're looking at like, what's that, 606 kilometers? But even though it's 606 kilometers, that's directly from there. You then have to start dipping in, which it's more. It's probably about 1,000 kilometers on defensive line, which is a fucking huge line to defend, and that's why not having so many people on it. But the factor is, the Russians continue to say they have 400,000 soldiers at the front, right? And Russia's estimates was we have 400,000 soldiers at our front, and then the Ukrainians said we have 700,000, and yet they keep saying that there's a 10-1 advantage from the Russians. So it leads me to think I don't think they have 700,000. I don't. I can't understand how many they have. I think those numbers are very faulty. They didn't come from the Ukrainian official government, because the Ukrainian official government hasn't even received. I don't even know if they've actually put out the official numbers, how many they have there. Maybe it's somewhat less of what the Russians have, but it leads me to say, how many have the Ukrainians lost? I'm not going pro-Russian here. I would never. I mean, I'm so far out from Russian pro that you'd have to kill me before I'd say I'm going Russian pro. I'd ask you to kill me if I ever said that. No, but it's yeah. But talking about the collapse of Avdiivka here, I was just pointing towards it actually. Following the collapse of the defense's line of withdrawal from the Ukrainian ground forces with the city of Avdiivka in the eastern Ukraine, the Russian armed forces appeared to have now launched a significant offensive in the Zaporizhzhia region, attempting to capture the town of Robotyne. It is surrounding settlements. The offense is likely to attempt to recapture the land which was lost by the Russians during the 2023 Ukrainian offensive. And that, of course, was the offensive that some people were saying, did that offensive fail? Yes, that offensive did fail. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. The Ukrainian defense, counteroffense in 2023 definitely did fail. It wasn't a successful attempt. And then they kept holding on to what they did gain. But in the end, it wasn't so much that they could continue to hold. I mean, and then the swindling supplies coming in from the West, because the West continues to be, oh, I don't want to send you anymore, because what if I have to go to war? Who gives a shit, right? I mean, if you don't have to go to war, if the Russians lose, then you don't have to go to war, but that's apparently not something, logic is not something the European Union or leaders like to think that is something that makes sense, logically thinking. Oh my God, Oh, I'm thinking logically? What? Spending less time talking about my private life and spending less time focusing on my sculptures? No. I mean, like European Union the European Union or their government spend about half of their day talking about sculptures and culture instead of talking about, oh, half of the European countries have just gone into recession. What are we going to do about that? Well, actually, I just thought, what if we made a sculpture to represent the European lust for not being in recession, and then you pay me 10 million for it because I'm this really great artist that knows how to make a sculpture, and because I'm so great. Like, there are artists. We have Leonardo da Vinci. We had great artists who actually know how to carve things into stones. And then there's people who knows how to staple fucking trash cans. That's not artistry, and it doesn't represent shit. There's somebody who knows how to prick a hole in a fucking bucket and sand pours out of it, and they pay him 10 million for it because they think it's so significant. It's not fucking artistry. They just pretend like it's artistry. There's nothing artistry about it. It's nothing like we'd rather spend 10 million a year, 10 billion a year on fucking art than we'd spend talking about what are we going to do about the factor that half of the European Union just entered a fucking recession. Half of the fucking country can't even afford to go to fucking Burger King or McDonald's. Diets is becoming so poor. Oh my God, these children, they don't exercise anymore. They don't eat healthy. Have you thought about the factor that you're not paying them their parents enough money for them to have an actual diet or be able for them to afford or have enough oversight in their brains, mental capacity to go about making sure their child gets enough exercise because they have to work half their fucking day off, or 90% of the day spent working. Oh my God, no, that's ridiculous. Fucking European Union. Denmark has just decided to send all of its ammunition, all of its shells to Ukraine. How many shells do you think that is, guys? Denmark doesn't have shit. We don't have shit. How many shells do you think we have? We have nothing. The shells we're gonna send to Ukraine is gonna last them a week at most. It's nothing. It is nothing. Like it's symbolically great, but it's nothing. I'm so happy. I'm so happy that there's somebody who's decided to do something so great. All right, there's a fucking sound. Give me 1 second. I'll be right back. Because apparently there's like sound. There's like an air bubble in my in like my how do you say that, dishwasher. It's like in your pipes there can be an air bubble or air trying to get out, and it makes a sound like your fire alarm is running out of battery. That's kind of like the sound it makes. So I had to the way you fix it, you just turn on the faucet and then it goes and the water comes out and the pressure gets released, and that's all you do. Oh yeah. So Russia has issued threats against Norway over sovereignty issues in South Brett. Russian Deputy PM Yuri Trudnev compares the situation for Russians with Ukraine. Today, our warriors are spilling blood on the sovereignty of our country and on the rights to speak Russian. So here you have it. So the funny thing about this area here is that it's technically part of Norway, but the thing about it is that there is Russian settlers, and there's actually Russians have rights to not only live there but also sell and fish and stuff like that. It was in during the Soviet Union times. The Soviets actually put up a really great city there, or they say it was great because it was a country that had a Western influence in it. So the Soviets spent so much money setting up like a city there, which was like a very modest city. Nowadays, of course, they haven't kept it, so it's quite not exactly great. But you get it, right? And also one other thing, I don't think it's just Russians. I think the Americans also have rights. I think there's a lot of people that have rights to actually fish and settle and stuff like that. You don't have to have a visa or something like that to live there. I think it's very special rules about this area and this island. And of course, owning it would then give you right to these exclusive economic zones and also the military zones with Russia, which Russia would obviously use as to put down a port and have sort of a naval port up there, which would make their their ties and around the world even better. I imagine they're gonna go for Greenland after that. What's gonna stop them? And then they say, "Oh my God, well, who's going to stop them? That's going to be the Danish soldiers, obviously. How many Danish soldiers is on Greenland? Let me check. Danish soldiers on Greenland. How many is on Greenland? Let's check. The Danish military is responsible for the defense of Greenland. Oh my God, I can't believe it. Greenland must be shitting their pants. Oh my God. In Greenland is relying on Danish defense. I think we have like 1,000 something. It might even not even be 1,000 soldiers. I don't even think we have 1,000 soldiers up there. It's like a special brigade that's trained to fight in the cold. Now, they're not bad soldiers. They just don't have any support really in anything. We have 7 warships in total. I mean, you imagine that sort of try to scare off the Russians to try and take Greenland from us. Because what's going to stop them? Nothing. nothing is gonna fucking stop them. That's why I keep advocating for getting rid of the ground force. Send everything the Danish have, like tanks, artillery cells, which we've already done, artillery systems, combat vehicles, what all those other things, which I can't remember right now, ATVs or stuff like that. You get it. Send them to Ukraine. Get rid of it. And get rid of the ground force. Turn them into air force and naval forces. Because the factor is, the more naval force that we have, the more claim we can actually put to Greenland. Because you have to travel by sea to get there, and we can put a massive sea force in the area, and then we have a claim for it. Apparently, the Danish government thinking, no, let's keep 7 warships and hope the Russians doesn't do anything. Because the Russians have never, get this, guys, the Russians have never done anything to prove that they would like to invade somebody else. Oh my God, you know, the Russians invading another sovereign country. Who would make you think that? You know, what would make you think that? Let's see. 2004, Georgia got invaded. They got invaded twice by the Russians. They invaded Ukraine 2024, and of course the current war. They've been, yeah, and then, well, I think it stops there, doesn't it? But then since then they've been sponsored a lot of wars around the world. I mean, you know, it's not like we didn't see this coming. You know, we've had 20 years of knowing that the Russians and Putin would like to invade everyone. So it's not like, you know, like you've had 20 years to build ships, to build tanks, to build, and I'm not talking about the actual tanks. I'm talking about the idea of building infrastructure that can build, you know, tanks, production of tanks, ships, and all that. You've had 20 years to know that the Russians would very likely one day try to invade you. What have you done? You've created an alliance that's been existing since 1950. You know, in 1950 the NATO came around, and then since then the Germans, of course, have reduced their army. That makes sense. The French have been reducing their army because that makes sense. The Polish has been reducing their army because that makes sense. The only people who hasn't been reducing their army and actually getting ready for a war, guess who that is? Oh my God, who can it be? The Finnish, right? Finland, who's actually been getting ready for a fucking war, you know, because they actually have knowledge that the Russians invades people. Putin likes to invade people, you know? Like, I'm just saying, this is ridiculous. It's just like, how do you not know? Like, you keep acting and keep saying to yourself that you don't know. Wow, I didn't know that was going to happen. Well, you know, you knew it. You knew it was going to happen because you know it. You've been knowing it's going to happen for a while. You know it. You know, it's like you've been knowing it for a while. A commander of the Russian army has died. Oh my God, can't believe it. I can't believe that. That sounds like something that would never happen. Let's take a look at the fallen numbers of soldiers and equipment from today's army here today. Now, there is a significant increase in troop losses, which is one thing I do want to point out here. Ever since the campaigns, of course, 3+ planes was a total of... Okay. Seems clear to me that 355... planes have been lost in total because we had 3+ since then. 1,080 troops, which was, I mean, that's quite a good one right there. 53 APVs, 2 vehicles and fuel tanks, 11 tanks, 40 artillery systems. That's quite a big number right there. That's more. This is in 1 day of destruction. Here you have it, guys. This is in 1 day of destruction, right? That's 1 day. The Danish have 44 artillery systems. In 1 day, the Ukrainians have destroyed, you know, 4 less than what the Danish have to offer in case of World War III. Oh my God, I can't wait to go to war with the Danish. I can't wait to go to war on the Danish front line, waiting for the artillery barrage. Hey, Mette Frederiksen, my dear great leader, could you call in and artillery strikes? No, we can't. We don't have any more. Can't you make some more? No, we don't have any infrastructure to make any more artillery shells. Well, what can you deprive me? Can you get the ships over here? No, we have no more ships. Can you build a more ship? No. Okay, well, can you buy some other stuff? Oh yeah, we can buy some more stuff. Oh yeah, when it's gonna get here? Well, about 2040. I mean, we bought it from the Americans. It's gonna be here in 2040. It's 2024. Can't you call it in sooner? No, it's gonna be here in 2040. That's when we were gonna get. How many did you buy? Well, we bought about one ship and about 10 artillery systems. That should do it. Oh, okay. So, can't wait to go to four on the front lines. Well, you have a gun, don't you? Yeah. Do you guys produce the bullets for it? No, we don't. Okay. So I can't wait, guys. Can't wait to go to war with the NATO, which basically stands for some of us are ready to war, some of us aren't. Touchy. Well, I think you all know that I'm right. You all know that I'm right. You just don't want to admit it. 2 cruise missiles, 3 anti-aircraft warfare systems, 7 special guns. And it's a touchy subject for me because everybody else has been getting ready for a war. The Danish shit. You know what? I've been thinking about this for a while. What if we didn't get ready for a war? Oh my God. What if we... No. What if we did nothing? What if we expected the world to also just do nothing? I mean, I mean, can't wait, guys. Just can't wait to go to war, breathe the fresh air of fire and great artillery shells. It means what? Oh, touche. Touche. I thought you said touchy. Touche. Right. I got it. Touche. You said touche. Okay. Because I gotta read that right. English right there. Touche. Right. That's what you meant. Right. Touche. Right. In fencing, uses knowledge of hit one opponent. So touche or touch in fencing, it's used as an acknowledgement of a hit by one's opponent. Right. So not touche? Oh, touche, yeah. Right. So you agree, right? I thought you I don't know words anymore. I mean, can I wait for it, We must kill the war. Give us weapons to murder war. We'll manage. Just help us a little bit. Fantastic speech by the Ukrainian combat medic Yulivi Praviska in the Munich Security Conference. She was in Russian captivity for months. So stop the war. We must kill the war. Give us weapons to murder the war. We'll manage. Just help out a little bit. Yeah. I mean, strong words. No, I'm not. I'm making fun of somebody at the expense. That's not right. No, she's right. It's a bit of a way to say it, but everyone has their own way of saying it. Do I disagree? No, I agree 100%. I think she's right. There's no more braver than a combat medic. That's something you all gotta know. Ever since World War II, there's been no one more brave than the combat medics. I tell you what, they're genius people going on to save the lives while they're saving lives, right? Go to war, save lives while saving lives. That's just toughness right there. I love him. You guys ever heard of what was his name? Dossman? You guys see the movie Hacksaw Bridges? That one right there, Dossman, what is his name? Dossman something. The guy who went to war with no guns and saved, he was a combat medic. He went to war without a gun because he was a religious guy. And he told everybody, I'm not going to go to war with a gun. And they said, oh, well, you're ridiculous. You have to go to war with a gun. And he said that thou shall not kill. He said, thou shall not kill. And, everybody made fun of him. Eventually, he got his wishes. And they got the Hacksaw Ridges, which is a Japanese island called I think, yeah. And because they called it ridges, because there was a sort of a ridge they had to get over. They had to, Desmond Doss, right? Desmond Doss, that's what his name is. Desmond Doss. Is it Doss? Doss. Desmond Doss, right? Yeah. They had to get over a ridge. It's called Hacksaw Ridges, not bridges, sorry. Hacksaw Ridges, right? They had to go over the ridge. This is like this rope thing they had to climb up on. It was an incredible task. These World War II soldiers, tough as nails, right? Incredible task having to climb up this rope there. Well, it wasn't a rope. It was more like one of those climbing, it was square, like one square angle, and then you had like a rope all around it. So it's kind of, I don't know what to say it in English, but it's kind of like a rope, but it's kind of built a little bit more like a ladder. It's kind of like a ladder rope, where they had to climb up it. And they got to the top, and of course they were met by the Japanese, who were hiding in holes inside the mountain. So the Japanese, they were masters, much like in Vietnam with the Viet Cong. Japanese, they hid in holes, and even though you couldn't see them, right? And even though this area wasn't that large, there were maybe thousands of Japanese soldiers. I mean, maybe not thousands, but there were at least maybe 1,000 soldiers just hiding underneath the ground. And then eventually, when you push back to the front line, they'd charge up, they'd go underneath hiding. The Americans, they like to solve the problems by going out with a bunch of hand grenades and throwing it down the holes. That was sort of the way that the Americans solved that problem, but they couldn't get to the holes because of the fierce resistance, blah blah blah, right? So they fought this war on top, everything went great, and then eventually the Japanese, because the Americans had taken the position on top of the ridge, the Japanese decided to launch a counteroffensive. Now this counteroffensive went great because the Japanese actually pushed the Americans away, right? And now they had to jump down this ridge again. They have to climb down this ridge, which, went horrible. And a lot of people were killed, except Desmond Doss, who decided to stay on top of the ridge without a gun in his hand, even though he could have picked up a gun, but he didn't pick up a gun. He decided to stay because there were a lot of wounded soldiers up there who he didn't think deserved to die. So he grabbed, some people estimate his total savings of that day to be about 100 people. 100 soldiers carried home to their moms and loved ones because of his actions. He had a famous saying. Every time he would make this makeshift of a rope and a sort of, when you have climbing gear on, you have this sort of thing underneath your legs. That's sort of a climbing gear. He'd make this really great saying every time he got one down from the ridge, which, by the way, he took a rope and he literally like slipped them by that rope down to the edge of bottom of that rope there, had it by the rope, and he had to sort of drag them, release them one by one with his hands. I mean, his hands, they looked like they were zombified at the end, right? They had no flesh on it, but he would every time he would have saved one by getting it down safely, he would then say, God help me get one more. I mean, it was an incredible movie, incredible bravery. What was I going with that? I was going somewhere with it. Don't know what I was going with it. And anyways, it was an incredible movie. One of the things that you could argue about this is there's always someone who's really great in his wars who inspire us. This sort of inspiring us of people who go to war against all odds and people who do all these things here. I think one of the things I've noticed about the Ukrainians ever since they've sort of gone to war, and you always look around sort of the world to see the Ukrainians. There were a Ukrainian chess master who was 12 years old. There was a Ukrainian Olympian, or I don't even know if it was Olympian, but there were certainly some sports events, when you get medals and all that stuff. Recently you've had like a surge of Ukrainians who have become more and more recognized and who become, extremely great at what they're doing in their own individual fields. So you should have wondered yourself, is it in the Ukrainian blood to just be great? Or is it because that when you go to war, it is a sort of proudness for your country to persist and to go on, that because you want to prove something and you want to give your country something, you get to that and you just give it your all. You know, it's sort of, to me, I always think to myself sort of, well, you know, when a country that goes to war fights for the right side, right? Fights for the country, fights to the country. Does it sort of affect their willingness to do everything in life, right? You know, do they just get better, or is it because of the willingness to get better? Is there sort of a constant drilling surge inside your body because you have the feeling that, you know, your country's at war. I have to go to work and do my best. I have to do what I'm doing at the best. You know, sort of, everyone has said that the Germans were more advanced than anyone could have beaten, you know, tonight. So, Gretchen tomorrow. I've heard about that 20 days in Mariupol thing. It must have been crazy as well, but I can only imagine that movie. I mean, it's been nominated around the world for its movie awards. I mean, it must be a really great piece. It's a great piece of history, isn't it? You know, it's a really great piece of history. So I hope you guys are gonna have good time with that. Another thing I want to point out here, there were a crowd, and I didn't want to share this, but I wanted to point this out to you. I don't exactly know. So, but here you have it. A group of neo-Nazis called Black Clavis, or Black Slavis, I don't want to pronounce that, and red shirts were swastika flags marched through Texas on Sunday, or was confronted by a man in a non-viral interaction. All right. Sort of beats the hell out of it. Fucking cowards. At Jerusalem Post, sure. In not confirmed about interactions, members of the White House supremacist group, what? Oh, I thought it said White House supremacist group. I was like, oh, what the fuck? Members of the white supremacist group Blood Tribe march openly with swastikas and, what is that? Black, I don't know. I don't know how to pronounce that. I can't say that. Through the streets of Texas on Sunday. A group of neo-Nazis clad in blah, 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 blah. Oh, there he has some pictures of it right there. Look at that. Was always, you know what? That must be it, right? That must be the black, clap, whatever. But what funnelized me is that's the SS symbol, you know, and he's wearing the cap as well. These guys who clearly don't give a shit about, you know, sort of their own health. They want to get shot down in the streets, that's up to them. But they clearly also, by the way, never want to show their faces because of how scared they are of the consequences, innit? You know?
Is that the best you got?
I mean, I hate these guys. It's the best you got. Starts laughing at him. You know what? His mom had probably told him, "Oh, listen, when you get a bully, you just laugh like a hysterical maniac to make them go away, because that'll make them go away. You know, laugh like a hysterical maniac."
Best you got! Show me your fucking faces!
That's one thing, right? Show me your faces. Because that's also one thing I want to point out. They never show their faces. They're afraid to show their faces. Even though they're very proud to walk with the swastika on the streets of Texas. But they don't want to show their faces because that would be, what, too much? You know, yeah, I want to walk with the swastika on the streets, but I don't want to get recognized.
Where's your face?
You know?
Where's your face? Show me your face. I don't even know who you are. This is my face.
Your people poop in the
Let's
street.
fucking go.
Your people poop in the street.
You don't know my
Your
people.
poop in the street.
You don't know my
Your
people.
poop in the street.
You don't know my people.
Oh, I do. It's out India, bro.
Why are they like? Why are they so loud? Like they're loud. Like, you don't know my people. Oh, I certainly do. No, you don't. How do you know my people? Because I've seen your people around. I've seen your people around as well. So we know each other. This is American logic for you.
Y'all shit in the street, bro. You're shit.
You shit in the street.
You.
And then he laughs like the fucking Joker every time somebody says anything to him. You know. He had a laugh there. Why do you do that?
Poop in the
Oh,
street.
you don't know that?
Just to point out here, guys, if it sounds like I'm defending the people walking with the swastikas, I'm not. Okay? I think it's absolutely ridiculous. Just to point that out for you. I'm not defending the people walking with a swastika, if that's something you were wondering. No, I'm not. I don't give a fuck about them. Because they're people. The reason why these things affect people is because they give a shit about it. Right? These guys account. Well, they poop in the streets for real, dumbass. But listen, these guys, they don't matter. In the grand scope of time, in your life, you have maybe, if you're lucky, 90 years of your life. You know? Or more. I mean, with technology, you probably have 100. I'm probably going to live to be 100 if I'm managed to get that far without getting sick, right? Well, with the technology moving forward, people are going to live a very, very long life. You got to have a long life ahead of you. Does this matter? Is this worth laying down your life for to defend yourself for what? So a bunch of people walking down the street with swastikas can feel, what, bad about themselves? You know, this is the problem. This is why we have divisions in our societies. Because we pay attention to these people walking down the streets saying this kind of stuff. It doesn't matter. It's kind of like a black individual, an African American, paying attention to someone is saying that you don't belong in this country, even though they've been in this country longer than that American is saying. You know, they built America. You say it like that. You didn't do it willingly, which is that's another thing. We don't get into that. But African Americans, which I've always found it different, really weird to say African Americans, but I guess that's a better term than saying black people, which it is. It's ridiculous because, you know, having to pay attention to it, you know, all this paying attention to when somebody walks down the streets and yells racist slurs and you go up against them, you defend yourself. There's no reason to defend yourself because there isn't a threat to you. The reason, the moment there's a threat to you is when you pay attention to it. You ask yourself, who lives the happiest lives? The people who live the happiest lives are often the ones who doesn't give a shit, you know? When somebody says, I don't give a fuck what happens in the Middle East, I don't give a fuck what happens or who says what, and you ask yourself, why can't you do that? And why, you know, they don't care. They're just living their life. In fact, I might not be on all points that person, but in many points, I don't care. You see, I don't care if somebody walked with a swastika on the streets. You know, I don't care. What is it? How's it going to affect me? How's it going to affect you? You know? How's it going to affect you?
Because you have shit on your skin.
You guys, where's your faces?
I just you hear what you say. You got shit on your skin.
Where's your terminal faces? Cowards! Cowards! All of you! Fucking cowards!
This is like you. Who's looking more ridiculous now? You know, you're yelling at the top of your lungs, cowards. We all know they're cowards. There's nobody doubting the fact that they're cowards or that they're ridiculous. But who looks the most stupid right now? I mean, regardless of that, these guys look stupid enough. You
Show me your fucking
yelling
faces!
that, you know.
Where's your face, you fucking cowards? Show me your face!
But look at everybody else. Like, yeah, they're looking at it, but
Your face, you fucking
they don't care. But look at that. Look at like one guy who cares.
cowards! Show me your face! Show me your faces, you fucking cowards! All of you! Fucking cowards! Fucking cowards! Fucking cowards! Fuck!
You wonder why they're not doing anything to him, because they want the media attention. What you're doing by filming them is giving them media attention. I'm not going to give them any more media attention right now, but I'm just saying, Just stop giving a shit about it. Because you're giving a shit about it, you make it a thing, right? The fuck's happening there? Oh, it's smoke. I was like, white phosphorus or something like that. I was like, oh shit. No, but like, you know, I'm not gonna. Nobody's here is defending these fucking Nazis. Nobody likes Nazis. Nobody. Most of the world is agreeing on the factor that, oh, we don't like Nazis. You know, how many Nazis is left? Many of them live in America. Sorry to say, it seems weird to say, but it's true. The study goes that most Nazis live in live in America, because, you know, they do live in Denmark and Europe and all that stuff, but because America is so massive, they have chances of actually existing in America because it's so massive, and there's no way of America to be able to be everywhere at once, you know, so they sort of have that, and they can be in the rural areas where nobody gives a shit that they're there. But in Denmark and most of Europe and stuff like that, there isn't areas that are so rural that you can have a massive Nazi conversation. I mean, imagine if there were Nazis in Germany. I mean, you're not even allowed to be a Nazi in Germany. You're not even allowed to have the thoughts. I mean, you know. So you know, but my main point about it is stop giving a shit about them. You know, if you start giving a shit about these people who are unintelligent people, you know, who walk around on the streets with waving swastikas in the air. What do you think? They're going to start a third world war? Hitler's going to come back from the grave? What difference is it going to make? All you're doing is yelling at somebody that already knows that what they're doing is not going to matter in the long run. And then you imagine to yourself, oh, what's it going to do? Oh, it's gonna bring up a lot of people. But imagine, you know, because people think to themselves, oh, they do this and we allow them to do this. You know, they're going to start inspiring kids and other people to think these ways. But imagine if you didn't film them. You know, imagine if nobody pays attention to them. Imagine if they didn't give them anything, any mic or any platform to spread their neo-Nazis ideas. Well, what level of influence would they have on the world? You never had no influence on the world because nobody knew what they were doing. Nobody knew what they were. Nobody knew what, you know. The only way and the only reason why these people end up giving or getting attention is because of social media. I can't help to notice that not a single one of those neo-Nazis had a phone out. So if nobody had filmed it and done what that guy was doing, now everyone on the whole planet, you know, not on the whole planet, but a large part of the population on Earth now knows about it because there's a guy straight around Twitter, and then there's major news platforms that says, oh, this is news, this is trending, I should share this on my news media. That won't create any unforeseen problems, you know. So that, oh yeah, let me share this neo-Nazi chant on my massive news channel because that's news. That's not news. Somebody walking down the streets with neo-Nazi flags, it happens every fucking year. You said to yourself, oh, no, it doesn't. Yeah, it fucking does. But the only reason why you think it doesn't is because now there's major news channels on Twitter that start sharing these things and saying, oh my God, look at this. I can't believe it. Oh my God. Stop paying attention to it. Why do you pay attention to it? Just live your fucking life. Like, you know, you're going to be a lot more happy if you just stop paying attention to all those people. They start hitting on you. Yeah, you got to start paying attention to it. You start harassing you, start paying attention to it. But those guys, they're not going to start harassing you because they already know what they're doing is going to be, it won't help their lives in any way, you know? Why do you think they're not wearing, why do you think that they don't have their faces out? Because if they're employees who are probably not, let's be honest, their employees are probably not neo-Nazis. I mean, I don't know if they are, but you know, they could be. If they start showing their faces, they probably wouldn't have a job in the morning. Their family would know about it. So yeah, okay. The U.S. State Department on Friday announced the official redesignation of the Houthi terrorist group in western Yemen as a special designated global terrorist group, allowing the government to place additional financial restrictions as well as sanctions against the Houthis and other groups, which provides them with support. Because that's going to do so much. Fictional restrictions upon your trade. That's going to do so much. And also, you had to take them off the list to be able to sanction them. I think them being on the list should be enough reason for you to sanction them in the fucking first place, shouldn't it? Yeah, I think them being on the list should have enough reason or enough legal grounds for you to be able to sanction them without moving them off a list and then saying, "Oh my God, let's move them off this list so we can sanction them." You know, U.S. legal systems, you know, it's just it doesn't make sense anymore. Put him in charge of them.
Fell under communist rule.
There you have it. Great news. What else is going on in the world? Apparently, I don't know, because my Twitter's not updating. Don't know. Twitter on computer is getting very laggy lately. Not a lot of people's uploading anything right now. Because apparently the only news people want to upload nowadays is news about their personal hygiene. I just went to the doctors and they told me I have a mole. Oh my God, that's news for everyone to know on the internet. Donald Trump just released shoes that sold. So Donald Trump released a new line of sneakers that sold in matters of hours, $400 a piece, and there's now a pair of them worth $9,000 because Trump actually signed them. They're now worth $900,000, not 900,000, sorry, $9,000. So yeah, that's true news, by the way. that actually happened today, not that long ago, maybe yesterday or something like that. But it happened. So can't take it away from you. It happened. There were also riots. Can't remember where, but there were extreme riots by migrant groups in some country in the European Union, probably, or something like that. Oh yeah, and another thing, something I want to talk to you about. Now I know you might not give a shit about it, but we are gonna do it. This isn't gonna be a rant or something like that. But I will say this. Ethiopia, a country in Africa, and I believe it is down here somewhere. I can't remember where the fuck Ethiopia is. I think it's that one or something like that. Ethiopia. Let's get it up here because we're gonna take a look at it. I want to show you. It's an African country. That's as far as I am with you guys. Oh, there it was. Yeah, there we have it. Wasn't that far away. But Ethiopia. Ethiopia is a very developing country. One of the very poor countries in the world. The country has decided to ban the import of diesel cars because, and get this is the kicker right here, it costs too much to import. The government says that they spend billions a year importing. Here you have it. Last year, Ethiopia fossil fuel for about $6 billion, circa 42 million crowns, which is okay. Half of the fuel were putting cars. I'm reading off a Danish one, so this is why I'm not reading it precisely, because I have to because I have to read it and translate at the same time. It's a lot of money to send out of the country, and if we has remade that. Plan is to quickly remake the country to electrical cars. It doesn't, because it's not because they care about the environment, because they haven't become like an extreme woke environment kind of country. And in fact, they shouldn't. A lot of people think this is a ridiculous idea, and I understand why it is a ridiculous idea. Here's why Ethiopia getting rid of diesel cars is a ridiculous idea. They will sell you the idea that what they're doing is switching the country around to be able to afford electrical cars. Now, what I understand is that their idea is that they can import electrical cars for less money. There's only a few things about that. First of all, electrical cars require very specific ways of charging. You know, things that, you know, if you want to buy electric cars like Elon Musk cars, you have to get a very specific type of charger. Have to go into a very specific type of port, and to get the power for that, it would cost the countries a lot of money to be able to produce that power, which they don't. 90% of the country can only dream about getting cars. They live in poverty. The total GDP of Ethiopia is the... Okay, so I'm looking it up, because I know it's not a lot, but here you have it. Is... what was it? I don't give a fuck about the... Oh, let's try. $111 billion, right? So it's on the go ahead. It's going up, which is good. But a country that has $111 billion, which is not well, it's not a little amount, but it also means that a country of its size is ridiculously poor, because they don't know how to distribute that money. Now, I will say one thing here, which is a good point. The country has seen exponential economic growth in the 2000s, which is one thing we do want to point out there. I mean, 1990 and then all the way up to 2000. Better than Tanzania, much better than Sudan, which took it way down because of its whole civil war thing, which took it way down from being up at 129 to all of a sudden being down at, well, 34. But that doesn't matter. It does. But listen, I know what you're going to say. Okay, it's not that little of money. Denmark has a GDP, and by the way, Denmark is about 1 million times smaller than what Ethiopia is. Has a GDP of close to probably 3 or 4 times that. Therefore, it is not likely that this economy of 111 billion is enough to support a country's economic growth. Also, its inflation rate is through the fucking roof. But the currency, well, it's not really doing that great either. Now, I will say, people say all the time, well, maybe it's a good thing. Maybe it's a good thing, because maybe they can actually make a good thing out of it. Now, I want to point out this. No, they can't. You see why a developing country that needs its desperately to actually get its to people who work, you know, they need the cars so they can get from place to place. They do use bicycles, and that's all good and all that stuff, but people who are living in this country are exponentially poor. They can't afford cars. they can't afford electrical cars. The import of electrical cars is not cheaper than diesel cars. Okay? And also another thing, yes, you won't have to import a lot of oil, but the fact there is, you keep saying to me, "Oh, it's gonna go great down with on TikTok," you know, and everybody's on TikTok is gonna go, "Oh my God, look at this country developing in such a great way to be able to afford green and prosperous ideologies," and it's like, "Oh my God, yeah, this country is becoming zero carbon." But here's my point. Africa produces about 1 million times less per person, probably. Maybe a ton less. It's like so exponentially less than what Europe does. Despite that, Africa is, I think, almost twice the size, maybe even more. Maybe even more than twice the size of Europe. Probably more. This produces about 1 million something less than what any of the European countries produce. Okay? Per person, you know, like the amount of CO2 per person releases per year, which is like Germany has the biggest per person release of the year, it's like 3 something tons or something like that. In Africa, it's about one, not even into tons. We're talking millions. Point is, okay, I'm bad at explaining this because I'm not in it's. These countries are not producing a lot of CO2. Africa is not the reason why we have global warming. Africa is a developing continent. A lot of the countries, many of the countries, are developing. Ethiopia is a very developing country. It does not have the infrastructure for electrical cars. You need power for electrical cars. And you need to be able to distribute that power out to every single corner of the country. Ethiopia doesn't have that capability. It doesn't have even the basic building structures. You would afford anything in this such ridiculous notion. Getting rid of this, instead of going, "Oh, listen, hey guys, we can't afford the amount we spend on diesel. Is there anything you could like us to do?" Or instead, is there maybe something you could talk to the manufacturers, to the people who are actually selling you this stuff? Could you find better sources? Instead of saying, let's ban it, because it's a ridiculous notion to say for a developing country that can't barely afford, any of them can barely afford to actually get a diesel car, to let alone at this point in the market get a electrical cars. It's ridiculous. Okay? The cars the African people are driving around in, there are very, 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 very few electrical cars in any of the African countries, and any of them who do own electrical cars are very likely to be the rich people. There are rich people in Africa, and there are government officials who are very much of them the rich people. So the notion that they're saying, "Oh yeah, listen, hey guys, we're gonna ban diesel cars. We know you can't afford electrical cars, but we're gonna ban them anyways. We're gonna get rid of all that stuff, right?" So a developing country gets rid of its diesel cars. What happens next? What's the next step here? Well, they're gonna try and get like electrical cars into the country, which whoever wants to sell them electrical cars, I don't know. I mean, the market for them to be able to sell that stuff is not going to be very huge. Obviously, the electrical car dealers is not open to not selling anywhere, and probably Tesla doesn't really care who they sell to. But the market is not going to be huge because they're not going to be able to. Who's going to be able to afford an electrical car? And then, I don't know, the development between the poor and the rich. If the money they are not using, by the way, if the money they're not using on the diesel or it's going to be spent on the actual infrastructure of the country, then be with it, you know, because if it means that you're going to spend the money you're not spending on diesel or fuel to actually improve the country, okay. But if it's going to be spent on government officials, which is the usual story, usually the government officials take the billions and then buy themselves something fancy because now they've done something great for the country. But it doesn't. A developing African country is not producing a lot of CO2. Africa is not the root of our of our problems. China, Europe, America, South America, all of those countries, continents. Well, China is a country, and Russia as well, right? Those are the roots of our problems when it comes to climate. Africa is not the problem. Getting rid of the diesel business in these countries that are still trying to pull themselves out of this poverty problem that are running rapidly in the country, they might be able to do it in the future. They're moving towards a economy that could support having greater economic freedom in these countries here, but they're not ready for it yet, and they're not going to be ready for it until 2100. Europe is more than ready to be able to afford to only drive in electrical cars. And in fact, if you were to ban the diesel import of diesel and oil imports of many of the European countries, the climate would be thankful, very much thankful. The climate would feel it. Germany, would definitely be, if Germany were to go full electric, the world would feel it. Right, and all of the European countries, etc. So it all is a matter of time. But I think if there were actual ideas of European countries who say, "Oh yeah, we have a 2050 plan for us to be able to turn our countries into fully electric countries." Okay, here's the reason why it takes so long to be able to turn countries into electrical countries. Because you have to build the infrastructure. The infrastructure, it costs billions to build the infrastructure. Do you think a developing country like Ethiopia is going to be able to afford anything of that sort to be able to buy electrical cars, or even buy electrical cars, but be able to build the infrastructure to actually charge the electrical cars? No, they're not. There's going to be a bicycle country, which means that that traveling between city and city would either have to be infrastructure. The infrastructure would either have to be public transport, or it would have to be be some kind of bicycle. But having to travel between city and city and village, and the chances of them actually being able to afford public transport that is not diesel, that is electrical, well, that won't be very great, will it? So, sorry that I'm bringing this to you. It took me a little while to explain there, but I'm just saying, there is no fucking idea behind what they're doing. They can keep saying to me, "Oh, this one and that one makes sense, and that makes sense." And no, there's no way you can convince me that telling me them getting rid of electrical cars, them getting rid of the diesel car, not importing any more oil, would save not only their country, but give their country a better economic standpoint. It's just not true. It's just not true. It doesn't. There's no economic basis of where that becomes true. Sorry for having to explain that, but I just wanted to point out to you that when you see these bullshit stories, you need to know something. Most of the African countries are dictatorships. Most of the African leaders take the money for themselves. They can keep blaming the West for influencing them, which is true. There are a lot of Western influence in Africa still to this day. But yeah, what you really have to do is just maybe tell them, "Hey guys, this law you just put in here, guys, it's just not, it just doesn't work, it's just not." Guys, it's just not really, it's not, this is just not, it doesn't work. Oh, another video I would show you. Oh, take a look at this, for example. This right here is Iran before they started running the country on a religion. This is when I think they were communists. No, I don't know when they were. I think they were somewhat, weren't they? They were somewhat communist back then, weren't they? Or there was something, I don't know what they were, but I don't know if they were democracy just yet. Maybe sort of a social economic commonwealth or something like that. I don't know. But, this is before the whole we're gonna run our country on religion. They're so proud of their country nowadays. You know, all these people who came into power and the people supporting this, they're so proud of their country nowadays. Remembering back in the time of the 1970s where people were walking the streets without, you know, having to be afraid of being shot by a cop for not wearing a scarf on your head. Oh my God. I mean, do you want to live in a country where you could walk around without being shot because you're not wearing the proper clothes? I wouldn't want to live in that country. I mean, oh my God. Could you imagine the freedom? What is that? Some F word? Now, I understand what you're going to say to me is, this is probably just some propaganda video that went on and they filmed this. True. This is probably just some propaganda video. That is true. But the time between now and the 1970s of Iran and Afghanistan was much better. You take a look at Afghanistan in the 1970s, 60s, you know, it was not even just a developing country. It was a really much more developed, I'd say not just developing, but developed country. You know, it actually had the basis for democracies. It had the proper infrastructure. It had the proper infrastructure to be able to carry the country into greatness, or at least some sort of greatness. But, you know, then just so happens that along came this rule of the extremists, sort of ruined the country. I mean, this idea of, you know, the idea of these countries that, oh my God, we're doing so much better nowadays because of these extremist ideas, you know, that are running rampantly in these countries nowadays. It's just ridiculous, because the factor is, these countries, before all this religionly and all these things came in, I mean, there were always religion in the country, but before they went full religiously with their countries, you know, this was much of their life. It was better. It really was. There were actual infrastructure. There weren't, you know, you can actually criticize some governments. You can actually do stuff. You could actually, you know, so yeah, I mean, I understand that probably is some kind of propaganda video. I'm not that stupid, right? But the bases are the same. Before we're gonna change our country into religiously countries, the Middle Eastern world was a developing and developed countries and world. I mean, I'm sure a lot of you who were born in that period might have seen some footages of areas in there where you could say, oh well, yeah, actually that was actually some very developed countries. You know, then, you know, this whole idea of social economic and communist rule, or not communist, but, you know, well, yeah, I guess communist and authoritarian rulers came around, and well, they ruined everything because they wanted everyone to be equal. They, you know, Cambodia doing much better. Then Pol Pot, who was a maniac, came around and killed millions, and they ruined the country. Nowadays, obviously, Cambodia is doing much better. I mean, Cambodia is one of the countries that, of course, had authoritarian, had a really bad history, and then, of course, came around to sort of being more of a, I don't know if they're exactly a democracy yet, but I do notice that they are coming a lot better, seeing, you know, videos and stuff from down there. But also another thing as well, which is to point out, Vietnam. And a lot of people take videos and things from Vietnam and say, oh, Vietnam is doing so great, but their currency is the lowest in the world. I mean, there's no currency in any world or anywhere that is lower. I mean, you could have $1 American. I think it was what was it? 80 something $1 American, like 2 million in the Vietnamese currency, which is insane. It just, you know, there's nothing anymore in those countries there. And you say to me, well, that's because of the communist rule. Yeah, I think it is. You know, Vietnam is still a communist rule. And well, it's safe to say they're not doing too great, you know? They're not doing too good. How are you guys doing? A lot of talking. I'm sorry about that. You know what I do? I just go on ramping. Oh, that was Ephraimian, or what was it? Migrants didn't just attack police officers in Hauk last night. American police officers were also wounded during a protest by Syrian migrants in Charlotte, North Carolina. Oh, was it North Carolina? Gosh, wow. In Hauk, what's that? Is that Holland? No. Yes, he's really interesting. Anyways, listen, there weren't a lot of news today. Not a lot of interesting news. I didn't have any interesting news coming out today. I only had the document that I put down that I wanted to share to you guys was like it wasn't even a page. Like it was one page. It was one page I put down today. I'm sorry about that, but I didn't have any more. There wasn't any interesting news. I mean, nowadays I'm not getting a lot of news coming out. The only news I'm really getting out is just a lot of personal opinions, and you know, I think it's gonna take a little bit for the TikTokers who are very much Ukrainian aligned, which is good and cool and all that, to get around the fact that Anka Vika is lost. Because they keep saying, and what they keep doing is mentioning it in every post and blaming the West and all that. I get that, but you have to move on. You can't linger. In a war, you can't linger about, oh, we lost a city. And imagine if every soldier in a war stopped to say, oh my God, we lost that city. What are we going to do? Instead, they're going to have to say, now it's time to defend this city. Now it's time to defend this city. You can't break. You can't hold a break. You know, same with the news things. You can't linger all with long and say, yeah, this is the West fault and all that stuff. We all know it's the Western fault that we lost Andavika, but it also could trace itself back to maybe the counteroffensive didn't go so great. That's another point. I'm not going to get into it because I'm not going to sit here and blame Ukraine for any of it, but, you know, nobody can do miracle works. The best soldiers in the world are Ukrainian soldiers. There's no doubt about it. They're the most experienced, most battle worn. But yeah. Anyways, have a good time. Hopefully we can get some better and exciting news for you tomorrow, so I won't have to rant about random things or poor African countries deciding to go electric because they keep forgetting they're poor. It's kind of like me trying to buy a mansion and saying, oh wait, no, I can't. I don't have money for that. So, anyways, have a good time. Thank you so much for stopping by. We'll re-update you tomorrow. I mean, Flash, who has like his daily uploads, didn't even upload anything today. So, if he doesn't upload anything, it's usually because there isn't enough news for him to upload. We didn't lose, but we took down 3 Russian planes. I think it was yesterday. So have a good time with that.